I'm thrilled to be here today with Kelly Hoey, the author of Build Your Dream Network. Kelly is a connector and has been on the Forbes 1 of 5 Women Changing the World in VC and Entrepreneurship. She's appeared on CNBC's Power Pitch, keeps a column on Inc.com, and tweets frequently at JK Hoey. In addition to her portfolio of angel investments, she's an LP in 2 funds and an advisor to the New Zealand Trade and Enterprise Commission. On top of these professional pursuits, Kelly is the Chief Tech Ambassador for the YWCA of the NYC Geek Girls Club. Please join me in welcoming Kelly. We're really excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here with you.
Great. So the word networking sends a lot of chills down people's spines, including my own. And I might even dare to say there's other people in the room that would prefer to treat the word networking like an elephant in the room and maybe keep it in closed corners. But without networking, your career would have never gotten to where you are today. And you talk about this a bit in the book. But would you mind sharing with us how this idea of networking and how it's creatively developed brought you from 2002 to where you are today?
Yeah, so my background is I'm an attorney. I practiced law in Canada and in New York City. Made a career change, decided I wanted to make a career change in 2002 and realized I didn't have the network to do it, even though I was looking for a career within the same industry. And everything since then has come about because of networks and relationships and purposely building strong connections. So as Abby mentioned, the word networking put chills in their spine. It puts a chill in my spine.
Phew.
I confess in the book I am a reluctant networker. I was also very reluctant at public speaking. So the universe does really have a way of coming back at you. When you think of networking as working a room, you all think about, you say the word networking, you're probably imagining a cocktail party, there's a name tag that you have to pin somewhere, you're probably balancing some sort of a drink, trying to talk to someone introduces you, you're pulling off, some satay off a little stick, and, the horrors, right? And you're like having you talk about the weather or something, and you're just like, that is not networking to me. That's a networking tactic. But networking to me, when you think of it as an activity, is every single human interaction. So when you think about your own lives, for me, networking was your decision to be here today. Your networking is your email signature line. It's the headshot you all have on, fabulous name tags or on social media. It is... I don't know, maybe did someone leave a voicemail message for someone else today? Did you hand out a business card? Did you, leave an out-of-office responder that says you weren't going to be around? To me, every time we interact with someone else, that is networking. And those micro actions, in my mind, are what are more effective in moving our careers and our ambitions and our relationships forward than relying on, balancing a cocktail plate and handing out a business card and having something, smart to say at a cocktail party. So if networking is an activity, I want you to think about it as every human interaction and how can you do those better. Networking as a mindset, I want you to think about it as, this is really hard for a lot of people, how can you be a decent human being? Because I think that's all we're ever looking for, is how can we have someone who listens to us and is considerate. And then networking as, well, where do you start when someone says something foolish to you, like, do more networking, because you've all heard that one. That's great. How do I start doing that? Is, where are you headed? Where are you going? What are you trying to achieve right now with the help of other people? And then who are the people who can help you? Are they people already in your network? Are they groups or organizations that you maybe think you need to join? Now, how can you communicate with them better? Because part of networking is our preference on how we communicate and engage, and the other is the person you want to interact with. So I mentioned that I said voicemail as I think it's an act of networking. My voicemail message, if anyone calls me, says, please don't leave me a voicemail message. I don't listen to them. The number of people who still leave me voicemail messages is comical. And I can tell you what I do with every single one of them. Delete. I've stated my preference. Text me or email me or tweet me. Do not leave me a voicemail. I don't listen to these.
There you are with the Twitter handle again. So this is a pretty significant rebrand to the idea of networking, and especially what we hear in business communities or in an MBA session or anything like that.
Well, I want to say we get so enamored. I think we become so enamored with technology and ways things can do things faster. We don't have to pull out a paper map anymore. Thankfully, Google can get us our directions. We can click and swipe and tap. But we need to remember behind all of this is human beings. And we have messy, complicated, unusual lives. And on any given day, we can, be in a good mood or a bad mood or, have some trigger that sets us off. And your reaction to something might be different than my reaction to something. And so I think, if nothing else from this book, if people put people back in the center of your networking and think, how can I be someone other people want to network with? How can I be the person I want to network with? And just add that little consideration into your daily activities, I think it'll make all the world a difference.
So digging into that a little bit, one of the themes that Kelly talks about in her book is the give, give, get theory. And while it might seem a little bit self-explanatory, I would love to hear your thoughts on how you came to it when we're thinking about putting people back in networking, people back in relationship building.
Well, I mean, the give, it's great to be talking about it here, at Google and in the heart of Silicon Valley, where there has often been and has been built on this give, get mentality. But that is sort of one of those old rules of networking. I think there's an element of resurrecting Ms. Manners or Craig Claiborne and wrapping them around our networking activities again. And the idea is, have you been a good person in the community within which you are operating? Have you been that colleague who has been helpful to other people? Catherine Finney, who is the book is very case study driven. Catherine Finney, one of the interviewees, and she has the big accelerator out of Atlanta. As she says, if you can't call upon a network, you probably have a low return on generosity. And then you need to look at what your own interactions are. I think that idea of the give, give, get, though, is hard for some people because there's often a networking imbalance. You're looking to network with someone who is higher up a corporate ladder or someone who apparently has more resources, connections than you do. And that's where I come back to what I said before about being a decent human being. Are you considerate of somebody else's time when you're asking them for advice? Do you follow up and let them know what you did with that advice? Have you done enough research so that if you're taking someone's time to ask them the question, you're asking them the right question? If they've already written it on a blog, if they've shared it on a YouTube video, if they have posted it endlessly, why would you ask a question that you could find out the answer to in a Google search? You could do that work, read it all, take it all in, and then ask them a better question. In my mind, that is networking generosity, and that is an essential give, I think, in this day and age, before you ask for, time. Because we have two resources in life, really, time and reputation. One, you can maybe earn back your reputation. You can never get back your own time, and you can never give back anybody else's time. So really, that essential give in networking for me is like doing your homework before you make that ask.
To maximize that time and maximize the giving of the other person instead of wasting their time.
And realize that level of consideration is enough of a give, because like I said, people are like, oh my God, if I ask someone for an introduction, what am I going to give them? You don't need to give them an equal introduction. You may never have that opportunity, and they may never want it, but you can give them consideration. You can give them that kindness. You can give them that thoughtfulness. And that, it sounds like a really low base level, but the number of people who sort of like, this is all we need. One of the other people interviewed in the book is Alison Levine. Allison is, and how many friends do you get to see in life, are an adventurer? And she's a best-selling author, but she's also an adventurer. She has led the first all-U.S. women's team up Everest, amongst other accomplishments and mountains, literally, that she has climbed. And when I asked her about, networking generosity, what was the give? Because, of course, she's accomplished so much, people ask her for so much. And she just said, you know what? Just be considerate. Be considerate about the time that you're asking for. Be considerate about what you're asking for. Don't ask me if I've climbed Everest. Google search will reveal that. And she was so adamant on this, I had to call her and say, Allie, I need to edit your answers for my book. Because if I kept her original answers, the book would come in a brown paper wrapper with a parental warning on it. A lot of all caps, a lot of imaginative words. It sounds crazy, but just that little consideration makes all the difference.
So Allison was actually at Google last week, and now you're making me, I'm going to watch her talk when it was recorded.
Okay,
She sounds fantastic.
If you missed, seriously, if you missed her in person, watch her talk. Allison Levine is extraordinary.
Great. Well, good. Fantastic. So on that idea of frequent networking asks that we might get, or questions that might come in often, especially for someone like you who identifies as a connector. One of the ideas I wanted to run through by Kelly was to self-assess and look at some of the networking emails I've sent or I've received with lead-in questions. And I want to read these out because I think these are often networking crutches that we land on. I want to pick your brain about something.
Talk to the hand on that one. Seriously. Don't send that email.
And we'll break some of these down afterwards, but if you think of anyone for this.
Nope.
Do you have any opportunities in mind for me to grow? You mean you don't know everything about my personal and professional development?
No.
Do you know anyone that might want to cover this story or give me some publicity?
The number of times I get that from emerging tech companies who've hired PR firms, and that's what they email me. Oh, for the love of God.
So as someone who's relatively young in their career, and when I'm thinking about networking networking vertically, and I'm talking to folks that I know I want to make most value of their time, but I also don't want to overstep. I don't want to come off as asking too much. So sometimes it can feel more comfortable to go back to these general statements.
But those questions are asking too much.
Why is that?
Think about an email you get from a friend that says, I'm looking for a job. How does that feel when you get that? You're like, I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
So what do you have to start by doing? You have to start by asking a lot of questions and racking your brain. Well, do you want a job at Google, or were you looking for a job at Walmart? I don't know. What are you looking for? Mm-hmm. And when you ask big, general questions, you're making your network do the work for you, rather than giving them that target. Think about it like darts. You got to, you've got a target that you're going for. Tell them what your bullseye is, because then we have a radius of ways to help you. So if you said, hey, I'm looking for a job at X, and you're like, I don't know anyone at X, but I know someone at Y. I don't know anyone at NBC, but I know someone at ABC. Would you want to talk to them? We have something to aim at. But if you said, I'm just looking for a new job, I don't know what to shoot for. And now you've put the work on me. And that is too heavy of an ask. I think our networks have been extraordinarily strained when I think of it from about 2009, when you think the economic collapse and, Lehman Brothers, all of that stuff going on, and people strained and looking for opportunities. I think our networks are strained because our nature of work has changed. So many of us do freelance, or we're looking to get opportunities and experiences within one company, and then we're moving to another. So we're constantly moving in and out of opportunities and networks. So you're better off, and you're helping your network, you're helping yourself, and you're helping you get a better answer if you're specific. And people are afraid of going specific. And maybe they're afraid of doing the work, but a lot of people say to me, but if I do all that research and ask the question, I have to do a lot of work. And I'm like, yeah, that's the point. That's why it's network, that work word in it. But it's also, if you get off on just sending 50 emails saying, hey, I'm looking for a job, can you help me? That's time. Sitting around waiting for an answer is time. Why not do the research, find a smaller group of people within your network who can provide you with the right answer or closer to the right answer. Spend your networking time on that front end doing that. Ask a better question. You don't need 50 people emailing you back. You need 1 or 2 to email you back with the right opportunity.
I think, so yes to all of that. And to give a plug to your book, Build Your Dream Network, one of the things that I loved about this book is that you talked about how to figure out what you're asking in the networking anyways. You should have a goal in mind.
Right.
And sometimes we know that this ambiguous networking concept is important, but we don't know why we need to be doing it. So, and that brings to random acts of networking.
Right. Well, when you think about what you started, like the bad name on networking, like if I don't know why I'm in a networking room, I mean, I'm equally sweaty palms and anxious as anyone else. I'm like, why am I here? What am I going to talk about? But if I know why I'm there, if I've made a conscious decision to be there, it's a heck of a lot easier to kind of figure out, all right, what are we going to talk about? What's an introductory question that I would want to say to someone? Or if my networking is I just need to discover what this group or organization or association is all about, I'm happy to go and sit quietly and assess the landscape to understand, right, do I want to spend more time here in the future?
But that all should align back to the goals that you have set before even walking into the room, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise you run around like with chicken with your head cut off. And listen, our time is, we have not been able to hack time. There's still only 24 hours.
Working on that?
I don't know. Maybe someone's working on it here. We could just reverse things every once in a while. Met George Takei at South by a few years ago, and I said to him, I'm still mad with Star Trek. We don't have that, beam me up, Scotty technology. That would be good too. But so we don't have more time in the day, and for many of us, well, work is important. There's other things that are important. And your networking is also important for your community service. It may be important for other things in your life. And frankly, just having time to be with, other people that are close to you, like make a priority for that. So, I'm very much about efficiency. Maybe it's women, multitasking. How can you pack more into things we're already doing rather than to add more things on when our time is limited?
Great. Thank you. I would say for folks that are interested more in about goal setting and thinking about those meta levels of career development, I would highly recommend checking out the book. The chapters on goal setting helped me a lot personally with thinking about time at Google, and it made some of those networking questions a little bit clearer and some of the steps easier too. So just a plug.
It was funny. One of the early readers of my book sort of called me up and said, I've got some bad news about your book. And I said, what's the bad news? And she's like, it's not about networking. And I'm like, yeah, I had that suspicion. And I think it is a bigger look at what is it that you want to achieve? And you achieve things with the help of other people. Now, how can you form better relationships and how can you focus what you're doing so you can achieve it? So the case studies in the book range from working up the corporate ladder to crowdfunding, to getting on a national board, to, I want to say, landing a job right out of college. How Tina Roth Eisenberg created Creative Mornings, a global network for the creative community. So it's more than just how you balance a drink and work a room. And it has gotten a few people thinking about, all right, what do I want to achieve with my career? What do I want to do after I retire? I have a friend's mom inspired to start her own business after she retires as a school teacher in June because she read the book.
That's pretty cool. It's going to be exciting to see where this book brings people over the years as well. I'm sure you're going to be getting some fun emails or tweets tracking that down.
And those are the things that matter to me. Like when I get those to think that, something is unlocked, something for someone else, and now they can pursue a path to their own success. Something very gratifying in that.
So I want to jump back to something you were talking about earlier around us owning our reputation and owning our time. And one thing that really stood out to me in the book was you kept bringing back this idea of who knows what you know, or the way I would rephrase it is, what are you known for? Right. And I think my question for you right off the bat would be, how do you know who knows what you know? Everyone keeps up with that.
Well, I mean, because part of the way I see that is I think about how we've evolved, how the job market and opportunities have evolved from who those insider networks, to maybe what you know, because it was a world driven by help wanted and recruiters and classify ads, to now a world where I put it as it's not who you know or what you know, but who knows what you know. And I mentioned this in the book. I remember when I was researching and I pulled up something and it popped up. I know it was in LinkedIn. It popped up an opportunity at Google. So I went and clicked on it. And then it said, by the way, who do you know at Google? Why don't you contact them? And I'm like, yeah, what is the information you're sharing with your network in terms of what your interests are? What maybe you want to do next? What in your life and your career that you want more of? Because the signals you send out may be, the stuff that starts coming to you as the opportunities that you're really seeking. So if you look at it, go and look at your own profiles. Go and look at the information that you're sharing, whether it's in person, online, or offline, with your community, because you may be sending out the wrong signals in terms of what you want to be found for. I know, on my profile, you don't see anything about being a lawyer. It is so buried and so minimal with search words and everything else, because Lord knows I don't want to be contacted on that.
So when we're thinking about our email signatures or our Twitter headlines or even our bios on our internal job search boards, do you think that those should all be the same? And we should know what people are identifying us as.
Right. Make sure it's powerfully moving forward your ambition. If you're posting things online, what are the stories that you're sharing? If are you sharing, if you're sharing rich content that is dealing with your profession or your career interests, are you sharing in a way that people are identifying it with something that you either are an expert in or you want to move into or something that you care about? We have that ability and mobility to move between things. I mean, my own personal story was in 2011, 2012, I co-founded a startup accelerator. It was not my idea, though I was one of the co-founders. The original idea came from my two co-founders, and they realized in launching this nutty, crazy idea that they needed somebody else to help them. And they kept talking to people and describing the skill set and the abilities that they were, and the background they were looking in this third co-founder. Nameless third co-founder. And my name kept coming up. Everyone kept saying, you know what? You need to talk to Kelly. You should talk to Kelly. So what do you want to be known for? Network that experience, network that ambition, network that skill set. Let people know what you're interested in, because they may be like, oh, I know who you're looking for. You're looking for someone like Kelly, or you're looking for someone like Abby. You should talk to them. Sounds like a great opportunity. And that's how everything in my life has happened really since 2009.
For folks that are listening in right now and saying, that sounds great, I need to update my headline, or my goodness, I don't know what people know me for right now. Do you have any take actions? And I won't say a quick win, but areas that people could take away today to start to change their headline, change what they're known for? Right.
Well, I mean, take an audit of every place where you're interacting with other people and say, is there this consistency? Is this networking me forward in the way I want to be found? And then stop and think and say, all right, how is my network interacting with me? What are they asking me for? How are they engaging with me? Now, how much of that is my network? Like, do I have the right mix of people in it, in terms of relationships and diversity? Or how is my terms of engagement with it that, I've enabled them to keep calling me back and asking for these things? It's a little, it's a little of both. So go and do that audit and sort of assess and say, oops, what needs to shift and change?
Great. Action item for me.
I do it myself. I mean, I would say it is one of those things that's kind of funny. Write a book on networking and they have to eat your own dog food. And I have to follow the advice between the two covers. So I'm not just sitting up here flippantly tossing out, oh, you should do this. It's like, I have to do it myself. And I do catch myself every once in a while.
So you actually just started to touch on something that I'm excited you brought up around diversity of networks and where we find these groupings. And we actually had a great speaker at Google last year, Tara Winston. I'm not sure if other folks were able to tune in. She's from Interact Consulting and was giving a skills building session at Google last year. And she had a quote that stood out to me that I'd love to hear your thoughts on. She said, she warned us against putting your entire network in the same food chain. And I'll leave it at that. And I'd love to hear what you think about that. Break it down.
I mean, that was the position I was in 2002. I had a network that was very narrow and very deep within the legal industry, but very particular within the legal industry. It was, New York City and Toronto. It was bankers, investment bankers, Wall Street, I want to say trustees. It was within a very narrow area of practice. And even though that my next career move I saw within the legal industry, I had nowhere to go unless I wanted to go a general counsel or move to another firm and do the same thing. And so that was a big wake-up call for me. So I'm doing this because there's basically two types of networks. Some of them are associated with gender. And some of it, I want to say, like I described my own legal career, some of us, because of our industry and our profession, we do this with our network. It becomes very expertise and very narrow. So there's a narrow, deep network that's often associated with women, the types of networks they have. As I described it, I had the double whammy on that. I also had it because I was a lawyer doing a particular area of law. The power in that network is that's where you have people who've got your back. They're the people who, can give you that feedback, maybe some deep mentorship. They really know you well. That team you can instantly pull together on a project when you have a narrow, deep network. You can already see the problem with it. Doesn't create a lot of opportunities. So the other network is a broad, shallow network that's typically associated with the types of relationships that men have. The reality is you need both. You need those loose ties. Those loose ties are where opportunity comes from. You may not be able to get deep feedback, but you can sure spread a message in a long way. You sure can find someone to go, oh God, yeah, right, I went to college with someone who's doing that. Let me reach out to them and see if they're interested in, talking about it or meeting or whatever. You need both of those. And the reality is our lives do that. You think about when you are in college and then those relationships ebb out this way further and further, but find ways to keep those people in your periphery. I mean, we're a case study of that quote in many ways. If you had just said, all right, I had my nice internship for 2 months in New York City in 2012. Thanks very much. See you later.
On my way, yeah. Wouldn't be here today.
I wouldn't be sitting here today, right? So Abby had been my intern. And I think that's also when you think about food chain, we often think of networking as up the food chain. And the reality is we live in a 360 world. You never know where opportunities are going to come from. Your next boss may be, 30 years older or 30 years younger. Sort of nurture and take care of all the relationships around you. Back to being that decent human being, because you never know. You never know who's going to mentor you. You never know who's an opportunity is going to come from. You never know who you can help. And that just kind of creates that vibrancy and resiliency in a network, which in my mind creates the vibrancy and resiliency in your own career.
Great. Thank you. I have a lot of more questions, quite a few more questions for you around social media. You've talked a lot about generosity and how that plays in the network. But right now, I want to ask you one more question, and I want to open it up to folks on live stream and in the room for questions. So start thinking about them or put them on the door if you feel more comfortable. But my last question for you for now would be if anyone here was to go home and change only one thing about their how they network, what would it be?
Change one thing.
It's like the Hunger Games of your book.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot
You know what I would do? I say to everyone, so the biggest networking, because I'm often asked, what is the biggest networking mistake people make? And the biggest networking mistake people make is a failure to follow up. And I don't mean by that hey, Abby, the email I could send that say, hey, Abby, thanks very much for arranging this chat today. It's, when can I follow up a month from now? When is there some time that you crossed my mind that I could follow up again? And that failure to follow up with a piece of advice, maybe an introduction someone made, whatever it may be. And if you do nothing else from today, like go back to your desk, whatever, sit there and look at your calendar and think, right, where is someone who has done something for me that other than the, hey, thanks a lot, where can I circle back and let them know what I've done with that guidance or how something turned out? And that type of follow-up changes things within networks, and that changes relationships. So if you do one thing from today and change one thing, like master the art of the follow-up.
That's a great note to take some questions on. Thank you so much. I want to first open it up to the room and see if we have any live questions.
I have a question on the gender issue. So you're hinting on men and women are very different in networking styles. And how does that differentiate the two genders in terms of career development?
That is a terrific question in terms of networking and career development. Here's the two things that are running through my mind. One is for people earlier in their career, I often recommend to them, I said, look at what it takes for other people to be successful in the area you want to go into. And part of how they're successful is not just the knowledge base, it's how they interact. And ask yourself, will I be as successful within that interaction? So I knew I could be successful as a legal career, but if I'd chosen to be a tax attorney, I would have been an abject failure. Their way of networking is very technical, it is very research-driven, and it is very paper-driven in terms of writing papers and things and sending updates. That is not me. I was much better off hanging out, as I used to refer to them, with my frat boy Wall Street clients, because, giving someone a tequila shot was a heck of a lot easier than spending endless hours researching. But that was my personality type. So look ahead and say, how do they interact? I also think this is where there is power in knowing why you want to seek the advice of other people. Because we all operate within, I would say, proximity in communities that they may have their patterns of interactions and how you may not want to completely disrupt it, but you want to be part of the conversation. And this is where you have to find those opportunities to seek out people, in my mind, on their advice and their guidance of how they can help you. So for example, to reach out to someone and say, please explain to me, why this happened in your career. Like, how did you make the move from HR to engineering? That intrigues me. And it doesn't seem to be, a linear career process. How did that come about? People want to talk and share that kind of particular advice. And so if you find yourself within an environment that you don't think, well, I'm not going to go out and do that type of networking, find other ways to have conversation that focuses back on the nature of work. Does that help?
We have a Dory question. So what advice do you have for introverts?
This is my favorite question, advice for introverts. We didn't talk about this. I did mention that the book is case study driven. And I saw people within my network that had a particular outcome, and I said, I need you to unpack this. Because I have a suspicion that you have achieved this goal in a networked way by building relationships, seeking the help of others, building your own expertise, sharing that within your network, and moving towards whatever your goal is, whether it's up the corporate ladder, starting a venture capital fund, climbing Everest, etc. So I sent out questions to these people in my book, and I did not ask them one question. I didn't ask them their personality type. I didn't ask how'd you do on the Myers-Briggs, how'd you do? No, didn't ask that question, and my answers started coming back. Most of the people were featured in the book are introverts. And not a little bit introverted, really introverted. I think in this day and age when we are bombarded with opportunities and information online and off and choice, I think people who are more purposeful and conscientious in how they network are better networkers. And my guess is those are introverts. In managing your own discomfort, in managing your concern on what your ask may be and how it may feel or impose on someone else, I think you're better positioned to succeed than extroverts. I'm going to go really out on a limb and say that one. So my advice to introverts is anytime someone sends you a networking tip that says, maybe it's a link to an article that's, hey, 10 things introverts can do to, network more like extroverts, I want you to hit delete immediately. Someone sends you that advice, I want you to ignore it. Continue to be conscientious, continue to be purposeful. Continue to understand why it is you need to undertake networking activities. One of the great case studies in the book is a guy by the name of Joe Styler. Joe is at GoDaddy. He networked his way up from the help desk to the aftermarkets department. So, as I like to say, in my way from being in New York and on Wall Street, from being the receptionist at Goldman Sachs to lead trader. He's made that change in his career, networking, building his expertise, moving his career forward within his industry, very purposely and very intentionally within GoDaddy. And he's like, hey, there's things I know I have to do that, I'm not, if I look at my personality type, I know I'm not comfortable doing them, but I understand now why I need to do them. So I can step into that room. And he is so purposeful and so well researched anytime. I think it's to manage that discomfort. But his case study is an absolutely brilliant one in terms of someone who is introverted moving their career forward. Because if he had succumbed to introversion and just been told, go network, go work cocktail parties, he'd probably still be, hey, thanks for calling GoDaddy. This is Joe. How can I help you? Instead of in a very fulfilling role within that company and within the industry.
A technical question on LinkedIn. What is your thoughts on the LinkedIn Open Networkers, and how can you use them as a resource struggling with that?
The Open Networkers, in terms of people actively connecting with other people on LinkedIn?
Right. So they, if you send them a connection, you don't have any connection with them, they will automatically approve you in their network.
I want to know why.
So one of the things the benefits they do, which may not be a benefit for individuals, but
right.
they're able to connect groups that are not actually connected together.
Yeah.
So there's a good society view that these people play, but I didn't know how individually tactically
right.
use this for those folks.
Yeah, here's the thing. As a networking platform, and to date myself as a Rolodex, as a way of keeping eyeballs on contacts and thinking about who and when to contact people, depending on where I'm going or industries I'm looking into. I'm a massive fan of LinkedIn. And I think also, too, it has revealed to us, it's not only your own network, it is the second and third degree connections, and sort of unveiling that concept to people who hadn't heard of it. I think it's vitally important that LinkedIn as a platform. But there's two things with LinkedIn. I think we look at it as a platform and technology, and we forget that people use it differently. And we use it differently at different points in time. So a request to connect without a personal message, I think, is meaningless. Tell me, remind me, prompt me how and why. And then when you do that with other people, also remember some of us may be using the network differently. I know some people who use LinkedIn very closed off. If we haven't sat, face to face, if we haven't broken bread, you're not in my LinkedIn network. Other people are, you know what? I'm expanding my business. I've got a new role in sales. In my own case, I've got a book to sell. It's a lot wider. So if someone was to message me on LinkedIn and said, hey, loved hearing your talk at the University of Tampa, like I was the one who asked this question, I'm likely to connect with them. It also makes it when someone says, can you make an introduction? I see you're connected on LinkedIn to this person, can you make the introduction? That's also where you need to understand that they may not have the strongest connection to people to make an introduction. So I would be able to say, oh yeah, that person, I know them, we connected in Tampa for 10 minutes. You can reach out and use my name, but I don't think I can be that meaningful in terms of anything in depth in a connection. But we use it differently, and I think that's you've hit on something in my mind which is bigger, is that when you have digital tools around networks, when we focus on the tools themselves and the technology, we forget that people use them differently. And just remember always it's human beings behind that. And think about the way that you using something is not necessarily the way somebody else uses it. And I would say for anyone, in the room and anyone watching, so on my website, jkellyhoey.co, it's a .co, not a .com. There's a little box that says Ask Kelly. Crazy thing, comes to me. Comes into my Gmail account. There is no one in between that. So if you don't get your question answered today, just fire me the question. Say that you were watching this and you've got a question, and I'll answer it.
jkellyhoey.co.
Great. And to Ask Kelly, and Kelly answers.
Great, thank you.
Hi, to build on top of the previous question, what other tools do you use to keep track of your network? Oftentimes I realize that I don't remember people very well. And a lot of engineers, I think, have this problem of short memory. And oftentimes I would find myself, hey, there was this problem, and I didn't think of contacting this person, and only 2 weeks later to realize he would have solved this issue very quickly.
Yeah. I wish I had like the magic solution for remembering these things. I am very, I want to say geography based in my thinking in terms of when I start problem solving. If I think of networking as it's the way you've just described it, like problem solving, who can help me with this problem? I'm often very geography or company based when I think of it. Sometimes I'm like, okay, where did I meet them? Where did I meet them? And I have to kind of like go down this waterfall. I would say for anyone, like figure out how you start to problem solve in these situations. Like who have I met? And then you'll probably figure out what is the best way for you to organize your contacts. Are you someone who would go to LinkedIn? Is a spreadsheet the answer for you? Is there some other, is it groups on Google Plus? Like figure it out. Start to think about how you problem solve and need the help of other people, and figure out then from there, right, where are the ways I can clump people in different things to be able to say, you know what, I just met this person, we talked about this stuff, he or she may be a good person to ask this type of question in the future. Figure a way to tag them or do something, but that part of it, I think maybe all of this with the book and networking is a whole lot of self-awareness. A whole lot of self-awareness about how you operate within this world, but how you reach out to other people and how you can do that in a way that is more effective. But I wish I had the ultimate dashboard. Maybe that's the next thing I create.
2018.
Yeah, there we go. Because I didn't have enough projects to do. I'll come up with a dashboard, because it is something people are always like, where is the Rolodex, the CRM system? I am not a spreadsheet person, but if that's what works for you, put it in a spreadsheet.
It's so great to have you here, and I hesitate to say if you want to leave us with any departing wisdom, because I think that's what the last 45 minutes was all about. But any closing thoughts or final remarks before we wrap?
Well, I just want to say, go forth and be better human beings. That's all that we all can ask for, and I think. If we understand that we're networking with other people, that their lives are complicated and messy, if we can stop and observe and listen a little bit more before we interact, we will improve our interactions.
Thank you. That's great. Kelly, it's been awesome to have you here. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.